thank the organizers and all the speakers so far for the really interesting presentation. So I want to talk today about fast and efficient decision making, both in the human brain. I'm a computational neuroscientist, but also how to apply these principles that we discover in neuroscience to AI. So when I think about fast and efficient decision making, I think about heuristics. We as humans kind of avoid these long pro and con lists like plague, and instead we make decisions in faster ways using our gut instincts. And we can think of this as a very evolutionarily favorable thing to do. So think of a good smelling, nice looking cookie. We want that, as opposed to look at this cookie, how many calories does it have, how tasty is it, I wonder, and how much sugar does it contain. So heuristics are fast, they're often unconscious, they're automatic, but they're also often error prone. And that's in contrast to more complex decisions that we make that are slow, conscious, effortful, but often a lot more reliable. So this dichotomy between these two cognitive modes of thought has been beautifully captured in Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which he details a range of psychology, really interesting psychology experiments that have shown the presence of these two modes of thought and what can be the biases that arise from these discoveries and how they can inform decision-making in our society. So I'm really interested in perception because it's a more principled place where we know a lot about the visual cortex and also can more easily interpret experimental data. So in this case, data from a lab at McGill here in Montreal showed that in this simple discrimination task between these spherical shaped stimuli and radial shaped stimuli, there was just higher average activation for one of the stimuli. And there were two possible explanations for that. One was that the animals, the monkeys in that case, were simply choosing or figuring out whether the stimulus was circular or not circular and simply integrating all of the evidence that they had available in a sort of homogeneous way. And the other option was a more sort of like optimal, so to speak, decision-making model where they carefully sort of look at the evidence and make a more informed choice. So because of the short time allocated, I'm not going to go much into this except to say that, data shows that the heuristics is what happens because of this sort of asymmetry in this perceptual curve. So plotted there are like the response probability for the radial stimulus, and we see like this asymmetry between them, and that only happens if the animal applies heuristics. So they concluded, okay, like the animal seems to just kind of look at the image and decide on average it's probably spherical, and just integrate all of the pixel intensities because of the high activation. So we wanted to see if AI can implement heuristics. So that was something really interesting to us. So we took a set of naturalistic stimuli. We considered ResNet as an architecture because it's more biorealistic than other, has similarities with the visual cortex. And we tried to look at stimuli that are sort of special from this host of set of stimuli that we tried. So in other words, stimuli that have this pattern of higher average activation. And we saw that these star-like stimuli had much larger responses on average. And we looked at the layer-by-layer response properties of the ResNet, and we saw that as the layer got deeper, the activities were separated between the star and the radial, and there was just much higher and differentiated average activation for the star stimulus and the radial stimulus. So very much like what the human brain was doing. And so we were able to reproduce very similar results in the AI as what the human did, both in terms of looking at accuracies and also after sort of silencing certain units and so on. And so the overall questions we want to look after sort of reproducing with AI this type of heuristic making, is if we can develop these computational models which not only implement heuristics, but alternate with more careful, deliberate decisions. So how can these two modalities alternate in AI to be more efficient? And what kind of loss functions in architecture can we experiment with? This is just a short little sketch of what we're trying. And with that, thank you so much.